Hello interwebs, welcome to Let's Fix Computers. These are my Corsair Void RGB wireless headphones, which are looking actually slightly grubby now. I've actually got them on camera, but whatever. And this is my favourite headset I've ever had. I really like these. They are super comfortable, the quality is adequate, and I love my wireless headphones. These things have done me proud. However, I have a suspicion that the battery in them is just starting to go. It lasts fine for an evening, but if I have them on all day, they used to be able to get through a day, and now they start beeping at me in the evenings, you know. And I'm okay with that because, you know, I've got a long USB cable and I can have them charging while I still use them, which just means they just become tethered for an hour or so while they charge back up again. Not a big deal. But I was curious. I thought, I wonder if A, I can put a fresh battery in them so they will get through an entire day again. And B, maybe I could put a bigger battery in and get like maybe a day and a half or 2 days use out of them. Which just means that if I forget to put them on charge one night, which happens now and then, you know, it won't be a big deal. So I'm going to open these up and have a preliminary look. My method of access is going to be, I'm going to remove this cup here, which I had a look at. So that comes off, and then we've got some screws. So I'm going to take these screws out and I'm going to see what's inside. And I'm expecting to see the electronics, and the battery is probably going to be in one side. I have a suspicion the battery is going to be in the other cup. But you never know. They may have put it all in one cup. Who knows? It would be sensible to have the electronics in one side and the battery in the other, but, you know, for balance. So we'll take this cover off, though, and we'll see what's underneath. So I'm just going to take these out. Bloody hell. These screws are hard work. Okay, that's all the screws out. So, oh, there we go. Oh, that was easy. Right, let's be a bit careful because I don't want to pull that off. Okay, so there's the driver. Okay, so on the inside here, everything's soldered into place, which is slightly disappointing. I was hoping that there would be some JST connectors just to make disassembly a bit easier, but you know, it is what it is. We've got the volume jog down there, which is a little bit finicky on mine. It looks like that's probably replaceable. I'm not going to do anything about that now. The USB connector is on a separate board, which is cool. So that is quite easy to service. That's just going to pop out of place, and then you could put a new connector on that. No big deal. Mic comes in there. There's quite a lot going on in there, but then the mic has also got extra lights on it and stuff like that. Okay, so that is coming in. Battery detect, VBAT in, so that is all going off into this wire which goes across the bridge. So yeah, the battery is going to be on the other side. Am I going to take this off? I'm going to see how easily this comes out, just so we can have a quick look underneath, because it might be kind of interesting. The USB port is a surface mount jobby, very easy to do. There we go, there's that board out. And if we just flip that over to have a look at the other side, there it is. It's a single RGB LED. That's interesting. That makes sense, I suppose. And yeah, that just mounts into there, and this is all a light pipe. That's kind of cool. Okay, so yeah, single RGB LED. There's the chipset for everything. We've got a couple of them there. And then we've got the two buttons for power and mute. And then there's the two antennas. So the antennas are in the left cup, which is as you would expect them to be. Interesting. Okay. Oh, there we go. Aha. Oh, that's fun. So our LiPo cell has its own little container there, and it's on a JST connector. That's nicely engineered. I was expecting just to find a cell that was just sort of taped to the back side. Let's open that up and see what it is. Whoop. Ah, hello. That's swelling. Interesting. That's actually puffed up a little bit. I wonder if that's why I was feeling a bit down on power. Just disconnect that chap. So, just for posterity, there's the other side. Same kind of deal. We've got another one of the light pipes with an RGB LED on it. LED's going over to there, the other driver, and then there'll be some power cables going to the LiPo cell. And again, we've also got a little bit of plastic just protecting the, keeping the cell contained. So we've got a 1 amp hour 3.7 volt cell here, which is what you'd expect. So 3.7 volts is standard for a LiPo cell, 1000 milliamp hours. That looks about right for the size of cell. It's a dinky little thing, but it's fairly thick. How much work is it to get that out of the holder? I'm guessing it's glued down. It is. I'm going to carefully try and scooch this guy out. There we go. Yeah, this thing is functional, but it's not happy. It's a bit puffed up. It's got a protection circuit on it, which is nice. And let's peel back this. Let's peel back this label so we can see what the manufacturer's markings are. Yeah, same deal. And this is a 523450p. Now, is that a size code? It looks a bit weird for a size code. So 52 would be 5.2 mil. Yeah, that should be 5.2 millimeters. So 5.2 by 34, close enough, by 50, close enough. So yeah, it's a 5.2 millimeters by 34 millimeters by 50 millimeters. And considering that's puffed up, and that's okay, I mean, that has puffed up to about, that's puffed up to nearly 10 mil thick. And it didn't look like it was having a hard time fitting in there. So I would wager that you could probably fit a thicker cell in there, which means we can probably put like a 1200 or a 1500 milliamp hour cell in there. The only thing that's puzzling me is the third pin on it. I'm not familiar with what that third pin might be doing. I'm just going to check if it's labeled anywhere, because I want to know what that is, because most of the time with a LiPo cell you'll just have 2 wires. So I wonder if we can figure that out. Okay, so that extra pin is for a thermistor, which sounds about right. So I've just been looking up some potential candidates on eBay, which have just popped up here because I was looking on my laptop. I'll just show you how I found some potential replacements. So if we wanted to, I could just tap in 523450. So 523450 LiPo. And straight away, as you can see, we've got some matches for that size of LiPo cell. Have we got any 3? Yep, and there's a 3-pin one there. So straight away, no hassle. There is a potential replacement that's a like-for-like replacement. And it's 3.7 volt, 1000 milliamp hours. So what if we want a bit more than that? Can we push the envelope on this? I think we can, but I don't know what size I would pick. So I'm going to search for, let's try 1200 milliamp hours. So 1200. Let's try 1200 mAh LiPo. What do we got there? And if we scroll down a little bit, so we're getting stuff with JST connectors on it and stuff like that. That's not really a perfect match, but they would work. Doesn't tell me what size they are. There we go, there's one. That's a 603450. So that is, so there we go. So this one here, this is a 1200 milliamp hour one, and it's 1 millimeter thicker. Again, this thing has puffed up to, what did we say, 8 mil or something like that? Yeah, this thing has puffed up to like 8.5 millimeters. So we know that there's enough space in the case for a bit more. And so that's there. That's a 2-pin connector, but I'm sure if I keep searching, I can find more. What else have we got? Can we push the envelope a bit more? What about 1500? There we go. Cell is the magic word. 1500 3-pin LiPo cell. There we go. 50, 40, 50. 5mm thick, 40mm by 50mm. That's a good contender. That's a 2-pin one. Has anyone got a 3-pin one that's got the thermistor in it? Because if we don't have that connected, it might not charge. Because if the software is expecting to see that, then it may not work without it. What if we put in 2000? There's one. 103450, so 10mm thick by 34 by 50. So that's the same size as this. It's just it's 10mm thick instead of 5mm thick. That would be kind of awesome. Double the capacity. But 10mm is pushing it a bit. I don't know if that's going to fit. We could make it fit, because we could just leave this plastic bit out. If we leave this plastic bit out, then we've just freed up another couple of millimeters inside the case. But we're starting to budge now, and I'm not super on board with that. So I think we're going to go halfway, and we're going to go with the 1500mm one. So can we get one of those with... There it is. There's one. 50, 40, 50. So that's pretty dandy, and that has got, and that one has got the that's got the thermistor on it as well. So that would be a perfect candidate for upgrading our cell to a bigger one. It's the same thickness. It's 40mm by 50mm, which is slightly bigger. However, this battery is reading about 40mm wide currently, and it's at 50 tall. So that would fit in. You know, we might have to just we might have to be a little bit greedy, but it would go in. That'd be no problem at all. And it's 50% larger than our other one would have been at new. Here's another one, 80-34-50. That's better, 8mm thick by 34 by 50. That's a bit more forgiving, I think. That will make sure that we don't have to worry about the width. What is our height? Have we got any give on the height? Ooh. By a fraction. We could. Yeah, services from outside UK. It's in Shenzhen, China. So that's going to take a couple of weeks to arrive. So I'm going to stick one of those on order, and I'll see you after the cut when it's arrived. So it's worth noting that where I've bought just a single cell on its own, that has worked out to be reasonably pricey for what I'm buying. If you buy cells in bulk, like if you search for, if you buy like 5 or 8 of them in bulk, you'll find the cost per unit comes down drastically. However, I'm not super bothered about that. I'm not sure where else I'm going to use a cell of this size. So I'm just going to stick with just the one for now. And I don't mind paying a tenner for that, or like £8 I think that worked out at. And that just means that I'm going to have not only a fresh battery in my headphones, but one that is 50% bigger than when this one was new. So we're actually going to end up with a huge hike in runtime on these headphones. Ooh, it is pressing down a bit. I think I may have been optimistic with my 8mm cell. I don't think we're going to be able to put this plastic bit back in with the 8mm cell. That was a mistake. I should have opted for the 5mm cell and then gone width and height. Because, I mean, look at that. We've got loads of width and height on this thing. It's the thickness that's the premium. I should have gone with the 50-40-50 or whatever it was. That one would have been the better option. However, I thought I'd try and go for the narrower cell and go and put my money in thickness, so I would still be able to use this plastic container. And the irony is I actually haven't been able to do that. But that's not the end of the world. That'll be okay. So this is still going to work, but friendly note, if you're following this as a walkthrough, go for the 5mm cell. Basically, that was a mistake. Hopefully, it'll still work. We'll find out in 3 weeks. All right, we are back, and I've got the replacement cell that we ordered from eBay. Here it is. So have I got my calipers? Yes, they're in arm's reach. Whoop. So this is the 80-34-50 cell that I purchased. and as per the numbers on it, it's about 8mm wide, 7.5, good enough. It is about 34 wide, and it's actually slightly under that because it's got the wires on the side, and it is about 50 tall. So it's exactly what it said it would be. So let's take off the, which one? It's this side. So let's take this guy apart again, and we're going to see if we can fit this cell into it. Right, so again, here is the original battery that we saw just before the cut. That I haven't actually seen it for a couple of weeks. And I'm going to get that guy out. And yeah, he's still looking pretty puffy. Still doesn't look like a happy chappy. Again, these things were working just fine. But yeah, and here's our replacement. So the replacement is a little bit narrower. It's ever so slightly taller. And it would be considerably thicker were it not for the fact that this one is actually puffed up to be much thicker. So yeah. So just out of interest now, let's start getting into the more technical bits. So firstly, what state of health is. So this cell is operational. So I'm expecting to see a 3.7 nominal on this. I think it's about 50% full at the moment. So we should see, yeah, 3.8, 3.9. That's like 70 or 80% charge. That's doing fine and dandy. Now, the other thing I wanted to know is we've bought a 3-pin cell, and I want to see if it would have been possible to do something about that third pin. If I couldn't find a 3-wire cell, I want to know if it would have been possible just to tie that thermal sensor to ground or something like that. So I'm going to read the resistance there. So that's got about 12k of resistance. So now what I want to do is I'm just going to fire a little bit of air, a little bit of hot air at this battery, and I'm just going to see whether what that resistance does. And what I think we're going to find, I'm just going to hit it with 100 degrees, and what I think we'll find is that resistance is going to increase or it's going to drop. I'm not sure which. There we go. So when I hit it with the hot air, the resistance started tanking. So if you can't find a battery with the 3 wires on it, then what you would need to do is you want to grab just a 10k resistor and just put a 10k resistor across the center pin to ground, and that would just trick the headphones into seeing a fixed temperature on the cell, and that would ensure that the headset would not mistakenly think that the cell was overheating. So because we've got just bare wires on this cell, we've got 2 options. Either A, I can remove this connector from this board and solder in the new cell, or B, I'll have to somehow manage to get this 3-pin JST connector onto this cell. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to chop these wires and I'm going to solder them onto the ends of these ones. And that is quite excessive, and it's a bit of fiddly soldering that I'll have to do. But it means that this cell will then become a drop-in replacement. So the other thing that we're going to do, I'm just going to place that in there and just see how well it fits. It's a little bit on the tall side. That just about goes in there. Right, and as we can see, it's just a little bit on the fat boy side. What I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna tuck those wires in there. I'm just gonna see how well this goes back together with this cell in as it is, so we can find out if we need to do any other modifications. The headphone doesn't want to close up fully. There's a gap there, as you can see. So I could get away with that. I could leave the screws half in, but I think what I'm probably going to do is mount this cell bare in there, just so there's no excess pressure at all. And what I'll probably do is, we've got this plastic bit of film to protect to go on the other side of the cell, and I'm just going to put a little bit of double-sided tape on that, just so it sits in place, and we'll just literally just stick that guy in like that, and then we'll have the wire coming around and going into the connector, and she'll be fine. So, right, here we go. It's time to commit to this. So we're chopping this connector off. Boff. And let's do some stripping. Now, what's the smallest heat shrink I have? That, which I think will go small enough. So I have got some heat shrink I can use as well, which is nice. So let's just cut off. What are we going to need? About 1, 2, 3, about that much. Just so we can heat shrink the solder connections that I'm going to make. Right, so those have been stripped. Let's strip the battery connections. Those are already stripped. I think I can get away with that. That's fine. And now, because these battery connections are now exposed, I'm going to be careful not to let these wires touch together. Okay, and I'm going to tin up the larger end. And we'll just put a bit on the small one as well. And I nearly forgot to put my heat shrink on first. And now we'll just solder those together. There we go, that's simple. And we'll bring the heat shrink up. And now I'll just put the hot air on that. 200 degrees, high airflow. There we go. I could just put some Captain tape around that or something like that if I wanted to. But I've got all these little bits of heat shrink and stuff like that because I've been collecting all the little bits over time. You just order little bits from eBay now and then. Buy it from eBay China when you're not in a hurry for it. It costs you £1 for bits and bobs, and that's why I've just got lots of odds and sods lying around now. So I just spend £1 now and then on just little widgets that I see. I think that might be useful at some point. So yeah. Okay, right. So now I'm going to go through the rest of it without the commentary. You've seen me do one. We're going to rinse and repeat for the others. So I'm going to do the temperature sensor next, and then we'll do the live. There we go, and there is our new cell wire. Ready to go in. 50% bigger than the old one. 50% bigger than the old one when it was new. Okay, and I'm just going to put a little square of double-sided tape there and peel the backing off of it. Or I could just take that off as well. So we haven't actually sort of secured the battery per se. However, because this plastic insert only fits in that certain way, it's going to stop the battery from rattling around in there. And it also just means that the battery won't stray and contact anything. Okay, here we go. And of course, it's still removable. I'm going to probably wish I'd put this in upside down. Yeah, I'm going to feed that around the back of the wire. I kind of wanted to curl the wire over the top, but I can actually see now that that wasn't a good idea. So let's just bring this around this way. Just route him around the bottom of the case. And now I can just plug that back into the original connector. And I've just got to tuck that wire down. Of course, the wire is a bit long where I've effectively extended it, but that's okay. All right. And yeah, that's actually closing now. It's got a little bit of give on it, but it will do. However, I can feel that it's actually gone down to the stops. So I can screw that in all the way and it'll be fine. So let's just put in a couple of screws just to make sure it's settled. And then we'll turn it on and just make sure that it lights up and works. And we'll make sure that it charges as well. Don't like the screws on this thing, the way they just tap into the plastic. It feels horrible. There we go. That's on tightly. Right. Do they turn on? They do. And if I just switch off my bench light. As you can see, there's the RGB doing its crazy RGB dance, because you've got to have RGB on your headset. I don't care about the RGB. It's functional, and it's giving me the, oh, I can't connect to the receiver alarm, which is normal. Let's see if it charges. So let me grab a USB lead. And there we go, as you can see, we're charging. We're charging pretty fast as well. 500 milliamps, that's quite aggressive. That's higher than I thought it would. These things must charge up fairly quick. But yeah, that's fine with me. I've got no problem with that. So obviously it might take it slightly longer than it once did to get to full charge again, but typically I leave these plugged in overnight anyway, so that's fine. Let's just turn those off. And after I've switched it off, it's gone back to the charge indicator light. And the charge is reinitializing again. So it started low, and that's probably, there you go, the charge is creeping up now. 34, 400 milliamps. So it looks like the charge circuit on there is just slowly bringing up the amperage until it finds a happy point. So yeah, there's probably some interesting parts about that, but that's it, we're done. So all I've got to do now is put in the rest of the screws, and that's hunky-dory. So I'll be leaving out a couple of the screws because we've left out this sort of holder thing, but all of these ones can go in for realsies now. There we go, 3 screws remaining, which can go into my screw collection. And I've just got to put that cup back on. I'll zoom out for that because I'm probably going to mess about with it a lot. And this is quite easy to refit, actually, this cup. I've had some that are an absolute nightmare to put on. These ones are okay. Thankfully, the cup is reasonably stretchy, so you've just got to tug it around those corners. go. Now we'll just twist it back and forth just to settle it and just remove the kinks. There's an annoying kink just in the top there. There we go, just got it. And we'll just make sure that's centered properly. There we go. Done and done. Comfy as heck. Turn them back on again. Give it the RGB show, which you can't see under this lighting. Yeah. There we go. So, Corsair Void RGB headset. This is the slightly older style one that still had the indicator lights on the mic. If your one is the newer style one, I would wager it's exactly the same on the inside. So yeah, if your battery is goosed, or if just simply you want to try and get a slightly longer runtime out of it, given the fact that we ended up removing this battery case altogether, we probably could have put an even bigger cell in there. I mean, we put in a 1500. I reckon, given the fact that you can just sacrifice this with no real major drawback, you could probably easily get a 2000 or even 3000 is probably pushing it, but you could get at least a 2000 or a 2500 milliamp hour cell in there. And then that would get you maybe even through a weekend of gaming with that. So yeah, I think that's a nice solid repair / upgrade. Thanks very much for watching, everyone. If you've got any questions, smash them down in those comments down below and I'll do my best to answer. Thanks a lot. Bye, everyone. See ya.